That's a problem now. As you rightly pointed out, it's systemic. But even then, it would seem that all of this is happening just all at once. You say that our internal affairs, from the picture that you paint, you say the internal affairs is a little, we haven't handled it, or we haven't...
No, the Ministry of Internal Affairs is not working at all.
But
for instance...
If you now put in, if you now add the legislature, which is supposed to have passed bills that haven't been passed to ensure prison reforms, if you add the fact that maybe budgetary allocations are not trickling down to where they should trickle down to, it will seem that oftentimes what we're looking at is what is happening in the immediate environment of the prisons.
No. You have to look at the immediate ministry. Without passing some of the bills and the rest of them, how were we managing the prisons before now? When did this culture of prison breaks, jail breaks, become a regular phenomenon in the country? So you must find out who is responsible for what. 2 years ago, I called on the government, particularly in the Northeast, because the usual targets of the Boko Haram sect, churches, mosques, markets, prisons, police stations, and the rest of them, increase security in those areas. But nothing has been done. And that is why these targets are regularly attacked by the Boko Haram sect. But in other parts of the country, the mismanagement of the prison system is simply unacceptable. Do you know that to award contract for the supply of food in the remotest prison in the country is done in Abuja? So you can't run a prison system that will function in that kind of atmosphere.
So the prisons are not, are you talking about decentralizing them?
Of course, you must decentralize. By the way, the military, the defunct military junta, took over all the country's prisons under a unitary system of government. And we have, some of us have shouted ourselves hoarse since 1999 that we must go back to what was in place before 1966, before military intervention. Most of these prisons we're talking about are warehousing people convicted under state laws, not federal laws. 99% of the people in Kirikiri and Ikoyi prisons were convicted under the laws of Lagos State. So it should be the responsibility of the Lagos State government to build and maintain prisons for those who are victims or who are convicted under its own laws. But everybody is lumped together in all these federal prisons, and the federal government in Abuja cannot take care of them.
Do you think that is just also state government shirking responsibility? We've seen that one prison was built in Akwa Ibom State by the state government, even though it's in the name of the federal government. At the end of the day, do you think that
the federal government will take it over?
Do you think that the state could have done a lot more in terms of taking over the state of the prison?
No, the state governments cannot do so. It will be illegal. It's unconstitutional. Because prisons as an item is in the exclusive legislative list.
What did the government of Akwa Ibom State do then?
Oh, you know, the government of Akwa Ibom State does a lot of things that have nothing to do with the Constitution. But I'm talking of the Constitution says that prisons shall be managed by the federal government, shall be built only by the federal government. Unless you decentralize, which is like the police. We pretend that we are running a federal police, but the vehicles, fuel to run the vehicles, equipment, and the rest of them are provided by the state governments now for the police.
Now, how do you see this getting resolved? Because it would seem that we will definitely have a long way to go. We're looking at Cotton Cadbury prison. When the man in charge was speaking, he said these people visited in the dead of the night. There was no electricity. Yes. The new prison facility that was being built was not yet completed, and as such, you know, they could not move there. And you just spoke of another prison in Mina, built in 1918, possibly out of mud and some other substandard materials that have not been upgraded. It's definitely something that they cannot take on all at once. How do you see this getting resolved?
Well, for now, we have to reorganize the Ministry of Internal Affairs that is in charge of the prisons. mean, in January this year, somebody died in Kirikiri prisons. Amadou Tijani, who was responsible for transborder robbery activities between Benin Republic and Nigeria for years. Because he had a mild stroke, he was not taken care of. He died in his cell. And I call on the government, on the authorities. There is a provision of the law. A prison regulation made in 1917 by the colonial regime, and it's part of our prison act, that if a convict is sick and suffering from a terminal disease, and the prison management cannot take care of him, you will call the family to take him away. They will sign that when he is being taken care of, he will come back. Like you ask him, you take him out on bail. It's part of our law. And I have pleaded with the government, instead of allowing people to die in the prisons, when you have confirmed that they are suffering from serious, ailment, release them. Because you're simply killing them. And it's not acceptable under our law. But again, the Ministry of Internal Affairs hasn't bothered even to consider such a request.
Do you think we should divide, because it's taken on a lot? It's taken on immigration, it's taken on internally displaced people, it's taken on prisons, it's taken on all sorts of things. How do you think we can lighten the load? Should we be dividing some of the things that it does?
No, I mean, none of those areas has been managed properly. You also have to talk of competence. I mean, you want to employ people, it should have occurred to anybody, then you can't ask everybody to come to the stadium. A contractor was asked to do the job. He's never engaged in any recruitment policy before. And 20 people died in the process. Even the jobs that were promised the families of those who died have not been provided.
So is the Ministry of Internal Affairs carrying too much weight? That's what I was asking. Should it be...
I'm saying that none of this weight, no area of the weight is being managed properly. But because people weren't having jailbreaks until recently, and it's not stopping. Because prisoners are now encouraged to launch attacks. And I'll tell you of another area where the prisons are mismanaged. When you talk of internal revolts, you keep young people in prisons. Convicts and those who are awaiting trial are kept together. And then you learn, in our prisons, the workshops are not functioning. So the devil finds work for idle hands. So you listen to stories from hardened criminals. Sometimes when prisoners are released, some are released, they hang around the prisons to wait for others, so that, because they will have formed terrible robbery gangs in the prisons. So you wait for your colleagues. As soon as you are released, you go and launch attacks in town. And that's a regular thing in Nigeria today.
Let's close on
so
this.
The prison system has become a problem. It's now subversive of the rule of law.
Mr. Falana, let's close on this, because you've talked about the Ministry of Internal Affairs. You've looked at the administration of the prison service and those who are the managers of such facilities. What do you think will be that immediate thing for us to do? Because you're not the first who has said it. Mr. Williams also said the same thing when he was here. He said it will happen again.
Of course.
So we'll need some immediate steps.
The government has to reorganize the Ministry of Internal Affairs. First of all, you must look for competent people to run the ministry and the prisons. And if it does happen, okay, you must deal with it. And you must investigate all the recent jailbreaks, and bring to book those who are responsible through their negligence. But here, it's a culture of impunity. Anybody now does what he likes in government.
Well, we hope that they are listening, rejig the Ministry for Internal Affairs, as well as those manning those facilities for us to avert what is happening. And he also talked about care for those people and see how you can't mix them up, the awaiting trial inmates as well as the hardened criminals, so that we keep having reformed and rehabilitated people when they come out of prison. Mr. Femi Falana, would like to thank you so very much for finding time to join us as a senior advocate of Nigeria. That means he's a legal practitioner. Well, so Zilla takes a break now. We'll return shortly. Stay with us.